Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. Broadcasting live from the beautiful New York Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. International Fight Week, the not Conor McGregor Fight Week. For those who've been paying attention. Still some fun fights, though. Should be a good time. And that puts us just 73 days until Raiders kickoff.
It's getting close.
73.
It's getting close.
It's inching. Under 75 feels like it's close. So, like, the reason I started doing this was like 8 years ago. I was on a flight, and it was around, it was like late June. And the captain's like, all right, blah, blah, blah. So it's, late June. And you know what that means? We're 73 days away from the start of the NFL season. I was like, that's hilarious. I was like, we're going to do that. We're going to start doing
man. Got to, man. I mean, look, in 2 weeks, I think that's when the Hall of Fame game teams start in 2 weeks. Everyone else starts the following week. And 2 weeks is going to be in the 50s. It's going to be like, wow, it's getting there. It's getting really quick. That's already under like, a month and a half already? A month and a half out-ish?
Yeah, 73 days feels far away, but luckily it's the summer months that lead up to it, and they're the fastest ones. Like, kids are out of school, you're due to your vacations, like you're outside doing stuff because it's summertime. It's like the days go fast in the summer, and it's like just like you're just like in the express lane. You're in the carpool lane heading into football season.
Yeah, man. Life comes at you fast. You don't take a stop and take a look around every once in a while. You could miss it.
So I was doing my, I was telling you.
Movie is Afro.
Let us know. Comment section. So I was telling you before the show, I was doing my will and trust with the wife. I got a 4-year-old. Let's have the will. And, I'm in my 40s now. Let's make sure it's all done right. Well, and apparently you name your trust. You can name it anything you want. He's like, well, you can name it your living will and trust. You can name it the Clifford family will, Clifford family trust. And he's giving me these generic names. Mm-hmm. And I'm just kind of like, I'm sitting there with my wife and I just look at her and I'm like, can we name it Maxx Crosby? Just kind of fucking around. Mm-hmm. And my attorney's like, you're a Raider fan? I've been a Raider fan my whole life. We're like, what? And like high-fived each other. Like, that's so awesome. Anyone in Southern California who needs will, trust, or immigration law, go see Damon Schwartz. Good attorney, bigger Raider fan. He's probably listening right now. He's like, yeah, I got a podcast about your soda. He's like, Autumn Windbags. What a great name. Like, that's where we started it. Like, I was like, we were on the fence about starting it. Soto came up with the name, and I was like, now we got to
do it. Now it's got to make it done. Can't waste the name like that.
Yeah.
Like Dynasty.
It's always fun when there's like a lawyer or a banker or like a high-ranking politician that's a Raider fan. It's like having a brain surgeon with a Southern accent. Like it doesn't fit. He's like, you're too fancy to be in this crew, but I'm glad you are, Like
Dr. James Andrews. He's out of Alabama. He's a country bumpkin. Uh-huh. He does all
right. We're gonna chop open that skull. We're gonna reach in down into your cerebellum, get into your oblongata, pull out some of that shit, put it away, bam, cancer gone.
One of my neurologists after I got into my car accident, we were just talking back and forth. What have you been doing? I'm like, nothing, just sitting around, going to the gym when I can. Watch the Raider game, a couple of days ago on Sunday. He's like, oh yeah, you're a Raider fan? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a Raider fan. And he pulls up his sleeve, just got a fucking Raider tattoo on his arm. I'm like, hardcore. Nice, dude. And his name was Dr. Hong. Hardcore. He was an Asian dude. I was like, God, this guy knows what's up.
They're out there, man. It's not just us broke ass motherfuckers,
common folk.
Yeah. So I feel like we should rename the show like the Rush Podcast Fan Show, because we can't do a show without referring to an awesome interview that Maxx Crosby and company did on the Rush.
I mean, dude, he does such great interviews. Like, he has such great guests that are like Raider centric, and there's not a ton going on right now. So I mean, for people who haven't watched, man, it's a great listen.
It's an awesome listen. The guests are amazing. And because there's so much respect for Max, A, they do it. B, they're open.
They bring, right? Yeah, they bring it.
So I've been a radio host for 15 years, right? And it's like I'll have like stranger I've never met, but they want to come on the show. They want the publicity, and I want to talk to the person, and it'll be a nice interview, whatever. But it'll be like if it's like coworkers, friends of mine, people I have relationships with. The interview is just so much better because there's a mutual respect. It's like I want to bring it for RJ, and also my guard's down. Like I'm talking to RJ. He's not going to like gotcha me. It's like we can just. I might say something kind of stupid or wild, but it's just because I'm loose and happy, right? And that's what happens with Maxx. Is like let's call a spade a spade. Maxx isn't like this larger than life personality, but everyone respects him. Like name one motherfucker in football that's like, Maxx, overrated. No, he's never going to be anything. He's just a product of this scheme. Like everyone respects Maxx.
Yeah, like nobody on the show. None of these guys are like journalists or anything like that. You're just buddies who played the game, played with Maxx, grew up with them, whatever, and they're just throwing out random questions. So, I mean, if they did get someone who was a little bit more closed off, I think it would be a terrible show because I don't know that any of them have like the interview skills to really bring it out of somebody who's not willing to be open. Mm-hmm. But luckily for them, up until now, man, they're getting better with their interview skills. But also, like you said, the guests have been super open and receptive. It's
sit on this velvet throne, light up a stogie, shoot the shit.
Yeah.
Great stuff. So Howie Long.
Basically, they bid our idea, but whatever. It's no big deal.
So Howie Long was on this week, and it was the rare not in studio guest. They did over Zoom or whatever, but it was great. Again, I like always, I recommend you listen to the entire thing. But I think the biggest talking point is when Howie was talking about Maxx specifically, and just like anyone else, Howie's just waxing poetic about how great Maxx Crosby is, like how good his skills are, and all that.
His mental focus, all that stuff,
his drive, like everything. But that's all stuff that we talk about all the time that we all just kind of like jerk off to, as opposed to like have a good conversation on. Here's something he said that's maybe controversial. Take a listen.
I'd like to see you rotate a little bit more. You had a couple of dings in the off season. You had to take care of a couple of things. I want you there in the meaningful snaps at the end of the game, the end of the half, in the key situations. Yeah. And I'm sure they've talked about that. And, maybe that's something they've already talked about, or maybe they will talk about. And I think getting you rotational help, it's like when you don't have someone to rotate with.
First off, apologies to Howie for that terrible screenshot.
God damn, why are you do Howie like that?
It was blurry, weird look. Yeah, it takes a lot of work to make a man that good looking look bad, but I managed to pull it off. So that's number one. Apologies, Howie. Number two, one of the biggest like feathers in the cap of Maxx, and one of the biggest kind of like driving forces, and I think one of the more inspiring things as a teammate is Maxx, second highest paid player on the team, best player on the team, hardest working player on the team, and he never comes off the field. That's pretty inspiring. Howie is saying, I'd like to see you rotate and save yourself a little bit. What do you think, Soto?
I mean, I tend to agree with him simply for the fact that, I mean, we know this getting older or just in regular life, like not even being athletes, like just stuff hurts more as you get older. The stuff happens. It takes a little bit longer to heal. And even though you have like the best of the best training and all that stuff, it's like you're going to get these injuries. And if you want to keep playing the way you're playing, you're not going to be as resilient and to injury. Because even look at last season, he probably shouldn't have played the last couple of weeks. His knee was that bad. And he ended up playing anyway because, he is who he is. And how many times can you go down that well and come up and still be fine? And I understand what he's saying, because the way he prefaced that whole conversation was you had these injuries, and going forward, you can't plan for the injury, because if the injury is serious enough, I don't care how tough you are, you can't go, right? So saving him, like he said some situations where it's like, you know what, it's the opponent's like inside their 30, and it's maybe a 3rd and long. It's like, okay, do I need to be out there? Like they're probably not going to get this first down, and they're looking to punt. They're looking to be conservative and punt. Okay, take that extra, here and there. He said situationally, so he didn't mean like be on a schedule or anything like that. But I understand where he's coming from, and I mean I can't argue with the guy. He did it in the NFL for years, up and down the line. So, I mean, he would know more than us, and I tend to agree with him.
I mean, the logic is sound. This is if Maxx had a drop off in production late in games or late in seasons, I think there would be a very strong case for it. But it's just not there. And it's not something he can do forever. And if it's, if it's a matter of like, look, we need to rotate you because your knee's bothering you, and we're on our way to the playoffs. We got to save you for some big games, and there's a conversation that AP and Maxx need to have. But I think as of now he should stay exactly how it is. I think it's really inspiring for the locker room, for him to just kind of like, because that's how he first made his name, right? His rookie year in the preseason, he breaks his hand, causing a fumble, and he's just like, tape it up. I'm finishing the game. Finished a preseason game with a broken hand, right? And it's like how he made his name, how people got like inspired by him. So I think everything Howie said is factually correct. Like, yeah, like, he played 1,079 snaps last season. If he played 970, let's say he played, 10% less snaps, that's 107 snaps. That's a lot. That's 2 games. So it's tough. I think he should keep doing what he's doing while he can, but I do understand Howie's kind of mentality of there's very, very big things that maybe you need to save yourself for.
Yeah, I mean, look, I look at it from this perspective. He played like 97% of the defensive snaps last season. 97, that's a ton. Let's say he does 97 again next year, and then we're gonna see drop off. You're gonna see it. It's gonna happen, and the drop off is gonna be steeper. From Howie's perspective, it's gonna be steeper than if he were to dial it back to 90% now. He can be at 90% for maybe the rest of his career, instead of burning that injury chance in maybe some plays that really, or situations that aren't crucial and vital. Just pick and choose your spots to kind of save yourself a little bit. But I mean, I get both perspectives, but I mean, I'm gonna, if there's any way or any chance for me to like lean towards one side or the other, it's his experience, Howie's experience,
and his ability to play through injury. I think is like, it's such a mentality that once you start kind of peeling it back a little bit, it peels back faster, right? Like once you start taking a little bit off, he's going to want to take more off. If it's just a mental thing, I like how he wants to always push through it. It's like like MMA fighters or boxers, like you need to be willing to die in the ring, and it's your corner's job to make sure you don't, right? Like you need to have the mentality, I'm going to do whatever it takes in here. And then the corner needs to know you well enough to throw in the towel, right? I think that's how Maxx Crosby should be. It's like, I'm never coming off this field. And then AP's going to be the smart coach, or Patrick Graham or whoever is going to be like, look, yes, you are. Like, no one's going to think less of you. You're the rabid dog off the leash, but we got to put you in the backyard for a little bit, right? And that's kind of why I'm glad, even though I disagree as respectfully as you can to Howie fucking Long, I'm glad he said it, so that if it does come down to week 15 next season, Maxx doesn't want to come off the field, AB can say, like, look, remember what Howie said?
35-10 in the third quarter. It's like, all right, dude. Maybe you can chill for a little bit.
That knee, I'm starting to see that knee swell up a little bit. Put it on ice. The game's done. Remember what Howie said? Remember what Howie said in June? This is what he's talking about. He's like, okay, there's one more legendary voice in his head to pull the reins on Maxx. Break glass in case of emergency. Pull the reins on Maxx. What a nice problem to have. He's too fucking driven. You have to pull him back.
Yeah, right. Well, man, you definitely want that issue. You want to say whoa instead of giddy up for sure.
Yep. So this kind of like lightning kind of struck my brain today when I was thinking about like, man, we got so much great cap space. When you're not paying a franchise quarterback, that opens up everything. The Jimmy Garoppolo money that came back in, like shit, we're swimming in dough, like $30 million in cap. And then I realized like we don't have really holes on our team. Like we don't have a franchise quarterback. A right tackle and a starting corner would be nice. Other than that, like, where's our holes? Like we're always trying to improve. We're always trying to get better at every single position. But we're going to be like, oh man, that's a real, coordinators are really going to take advantage of our guard or our safety or our kicking game or whatever. Right? It's not really there. And when you add the fact that we have the fifth most cap space in the NFL, almost no holes. I was like, we might have the most cap efficient roster in football. And so I started mathing a little bit. Started looking up the math. There's an article by the Sporting News. We have entire defense, $108 million spent on our defense. That's 15th most in the NFL. We're so much better than the 15th best defense.
Oh, for sure.
In the NFL. So that's a huge win. Offense, $113 million spent on the offense. It's 22nd. We should be better than 22nd. We should. So when I started going like group by group, I'd argue every position group we have, we spend less than the value of our group. Because what's the goal of every single GM and every single team is to get more out of your players and you pay them, right? Mm-hmm. Like you want to, if you're paying your superstars, you want them to be the best ever. If you're paying average, you want them to be better than average. You've got a bunch of rookies, you're paying pennies. You want them to be good. Like Tom Telesco has put together like the most efficient and like economically sound roster, I think, in football. So I want to go down the roster and position groups with you, Soto, and you tell me which group are we overpaying? Which group are we spending more money on than they're ranked? Because I could name only 3, and one of them super close. You tell me if we're on the same page, right? I can think of 3, and one of them is right on the fence, right? So, quarterback right out of the gate, 26th. I think that's a little. I don't want to be the Farva basher, but I think there's 6 quarterback rooms. I don't think there's 6 quarterback rooms worse than ours on paper.
I agree with that.
I think quarterback. And again, when you be optimistic, right? But
no.
You look at
even if he was much better than what we're intimating, right? Even if he was much better than that, he's still a second-year fourth rounder. So he's not making a lot of money. Okay, I mean technically, last season because he was past pick 150, mm-hmm. his salary didn't count against our cap last year. Technically, mm-hmm. So I mean, you take that into account. Where's the money coming from? Well, it's from a career backup. Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah, it's quite a bit of money you're spending on a room that without a clear starter.
Yep. Running back, $7.6 million, 24th in spending. We're so much better than 24th.
We're way better than 24th, I believe. I think we're getting a raw deal because we haven't seen Zamir White do his thing over a long period of time. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he played the Chiefs defense twice and he did well both times. So
I think we're going to end up with a top 10 pass catching running back room too. I think like pass catching wise, we're going to be really, really special. And then Zeus, fairness, like Zeus hasn't proved he can carry a team for a whole season, but whenever he's been handed the rock and been asked to do it, he's done great. So I think we're way better than that. Wide receiver. This is the fence one for me. $44.9 million, 5th most in football. This one's tough. Like, I think there's probably 7 wide receiver rooms better. In my opinion, 49ers, Eagles, Bengals, Dolphins, Rams, Bucks, Bears, I think are a better quarterback room than us, even though obviously like Davante and Jacoby are fantastic. I think Davante, he's on the downward slope of his career just purely by age. Not a drastic drop off. And again, 90% of Davante is still insanely talented. But I think he's just, he's 31, starting to kind of get out of his physical prime a little bit. And there's not a lot of depth after those two. Like, we have hopes for Trey Tucker. Like, hopefully Michael Gallup is still still good. But after those two, not a ton of depth. So I would put our wide receiver room at like the 8 to 10 best range. What say you?
Yeah, when I was looking at this initially, it's I'm trying my best to stay objective because me being a fan of something doesn't automatically make them better, right? And I think
Davante Adams obviously can walk on water, so we should be number one.
Well, look, Jacoby Myers, and I said this from before he even played a game. I think he's an excellent wide receiver. I think he is a borderline 1-2. As a 2, he's an amazing wide receiver. Mm-hmm. The issue that we're having is beyond that, there's a lot of unknowns. Now, we have high hopes and we have more perspective and we have more context because we know these players and we see them a lot more than your regular, football fan, right? So we can see roles being carved out for these receivers, but we haven't seen it yet. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen Trey Tucker be that slot receiver. We haven't seen Michael Gallup be that slot outside guy, hybrid outside guy. We haven't seen it in action. We haven't seen, a fifth guy come out and be like, all right, when someone needs a rest and we have 3 wide, who we're going to throw the ball to? Like, we haven't seen that yet. Yeah. And that's where a lot of these rankings go, because we can say all we want that something's going to happen or so-and-so is going to be this good or so-and-so is going to be that. Until we see it on the field, we just don't know. So the projections are going to be a little bit more, like the rankings are going to be a little bit more conservative, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with lower expectations and then far exceeding them. What I'm not okay with is people using their ranking with their feelings as opposed to what they've seen. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we haven't seen much out of this group beyond the first 2.
And considering like we're looking at our offense and everything spending wise is way below average, there needs to be one unit that we're spending on to raise the tide of all boats. Mm-hmm. Like if you're going to have, let's say we go all in on Aidan O'Connell next season, hot damn, it's okay to overpay Davante Adams to bring him along. That's a wise investment. That's not a waste of money. That's overpaying a guy to get the most out of someone that we need a lot out of. So
yeah, man. Look at Geno Smith in Seattle, dude. Yeah. Like, he's throwing to probably the best 3 receiver group in the league. Yeah. It has something to do with it. Okay.
Like, you muscle DK Metcalf out of a jump ball. I dare you.
Yeah, Metcalf, right. Lockett, and Smith and Jigba. Like, dude, these guys are freaking amazing by themselves, but you put them together, that's a great wide receiver group.
Next up, tight end, $11.5 million, 18th in spending in the NFL. And in fairness, this is all kind of because our 2 starting tight ends are a rookie and a second-year player. This is more projection, but I would take those projections for that money over most tight end rooms in the NFL.
Yeah, and really the only reason they're making that much is because one's a first rounder and one's a second rounder, mm-hmm. a high second rounder at that. So that's why they're making as much as they are. But I really do see that them producing heavily.
So we're getting more. We're getting more than we're spending in that group.
Oh, yeah. We're getting a big bang for our buck there for sure.
Offensive line, $38.5 million, 24th in the NFL. That's kind of low considering we just paid Andre James and Colt Miller's on a decent contract. I thought it would be higher, but that's pretty low.
You got 3 out of 5 on rookie deals, man.
And then that's the thing. That's the other 3 rookie deals. And then on top of that, for the last 2 seasons, we've definitely gotten more out of the sum of our parts at the offensive line. And I don't see any reason why that would slow down. Like there's not 10 offensive lines worse than we're definitely better than 10 other offensive lines out there. We're better than probably average.
Yeah, I'd say we're probably closer to the middle than anything. And situationally, I mean, there's a lot of situations where we've done really well. We need to clean up a little bit more, obvious running downs and stuff like that. But that's just not how our guys are built. I think maybe with Jackson Powers Johnson, we have a little bit more of a, especially on that left side, we'll have a little bit more kind of like a brute strength. But we didn't really have that. That's not Parham's game to be like that, road grader like a Gabe Jackson that we had before. That's not his game. Yeah. So there's some areas where we can improve, but ultimately, yeah. I mean, we still give our quarterback, one of the highest times to throw as far as before they feel pressure. So that's really all you can ask for, honestly.
All right, that's the offense. Defense, it gets even more sweet. Interior defensive line, we're paying $20.8 million. That's 21st, a little below average. You throw Christian Wilkins in there, the price goes up big, obviously. But him alone, I think, pushes us to kind of around average. And then John Jenkins, Tyree Wilson plays in the middle. I don't know where we're still going to count Wilson as an edge, but he's going to probably add value at defensive tackle. I think there's enough young guys in there that I think we can say we have like an average interior defensive line, and we're only paying 21st.
Yeah, ultimately, we don't have a lot of young guys at that position. Butler's not young, and Jenkins is definitely not young, and Wilkins is, still under 30, but he's not, he's on his, third contract now.
Yep.
So it's like we just have guys that play their role, right? Like we were talking about last offseason, I remember talking about the big impact of studs and duds. Go after just a couple of guys, but the top guys at their position who were available, because they'll draw more attention, and the players around him will be able to play a little bit easier, play a little bit freer. So I think the addition of Wilkins is going to help not only the edge rushers, but the other tackles as well.
So now we go into definitely not. We definitely are overpaying at that position. Edge, $43.7 million. That's the second most in all of the NFL. We do not have the second best edge rushers in football. Obviously, you got Maxx Crosby, walks on water. Another phenomenal guy on a rookie deal in Malcolm Kuntz. But then it's real shy after that. Tyree Wilson's getting first rounder money, hasn't produced yet. Again, we gave him a lot of leash last season. I got a lot of shit for how much I've been bashing Tyree Wilson for not. I feel like we've been very, very lenient on Tyree, considering we said, look, he's got to come in injured. We know he was a project to begin with.
From the very beginning
of being hurt.
From the very beginning, we said this. He's coming in injured. He's not going to be full speed. Edge rushers don't normally hit the ground running in the NFL. They usually take a year to really. Khalil Mack had 4 sacks his rookie season. It takes some time for you to kind of clean up. And he had the whole full training camp too. So we said it from the beginning. This guy is a physical freak. We just need to polish him up a little bit. Hopefully, he sticks into Maxx Crosby's back pocket and just does whatever he does, which he has been doing this last offseason. And I believe you said this was our big reveal. The big tell would be the second season of Tyree Wilson. That's where we can expect to see some big jumps. So hopefully we get that.
Second most we've spent at that position. We do not have the second best edge rushers as a unit in football. Chargers, Browns for sure better. Although we might be top 5. I think there's a good chance.
We're about in the top 5. With Kuntz playing more. And being able to, honestly, I'm just getting so sick and tired of these freaking, lazy reporters just sweeping over the Christian Wilkins signing. This is a huge impact signing. We were playing. Max was doing what he was doing, and Kuntz was doing what he was doing on the outsides with a rookie who really didn't know what he was doing, really hadn't played that position before, and a couple of guys that we got off the scrap heap. Like Jenkins was about to retire, and we signed him. Butler has been bouncing around forever. And so we had a couple of guys there. Tillery, I don't think he's signed yet. I think he's still out without a team. So it's like we get more help inside. It's going to help the guys outside, and ultimately, I think it's going to help the entire line be better. So we could definitely see a top 5, maybe even top 2.
One of these days, I'm going to stop putting my mouth around this gun barrel and constantly remind myself, like, just imagine if we drafted Jalen Carter instead.
No, dude, I have Jalen Carter, dude. That's freaking Christian Darrisaw is like everything with the freaking with the Vikings, and it's like, dude, he was right there. Christian Barrymore from freaking New England, he was right there.
One day, I'm going to stop torturing myself like this, but that day's not today. I mean, just imagine.
Dude, all New England has on defense is Christian Barrymore and Judon. And just with those two guys, they're still wrecking shop. Like, they're still doing really well. Yeah. It's nuts.
I would argue biggest value on the Raiders is linebacker. We're only spending $12.4 million, 24th in football. That's it. Divine Diablo, Robert Spillane, Luke Masterson. Got the rookie Tommy Ettenberg with some potential.
Eichenberg.
Just the way, just Spillane alone and how he's come up, and we're spending pennies on this linebacking crew. It's beautiful.
Honestly, I believe Spillane is probably Antonio Pierce's like shining star of what he can do with a player that he pulled under his wing, because I was a little bit higher on Spillane than you were, but I wasn't like, I'm not trying to say that I knew he was going to be what he is now. Mm-hmm. I had watched more tape of him his last few games with the Steelers the year before, and I was like, okay, he's active, he's around, he's tough, he's around the ball, he sheds blocks well, okay, he knocked a couple balls down, all right. There's something there, okay, and AP was just able to get the best out of him by kind of coaching him to be another AP. I wasn't the biggest guy, I wasn't the fastest guy, but I was smart. I knew where to be, and I knew my assignment. I was tough, and I got my nose in there, and that's what Spillane does. And he's made a lot of big plays.
Like 90% of football fans that aren't Steelers fans, I knew him exclusively from his big hit on Derrick Henry on the goal line. I was like, okay, so we can hit. Like, that's fine, but we need guys that can cover, and that's not him. And then it turned out to be him.
And it turned out to be him.
Out of nowhere. He was just like, damn, you're a good cover linebacker. Like, no one saw that coming other than probably Antonio Pierce.
Spillane is not like AP wasn't. They're not sideline to sideline linebackers. This is not who they are. They're more of box linebackers. But if you give these guys if you give these guys their keys of what to look for, they can be maybe just outside the tackle box to just outside the tackle box, both ways. And if you give them the right keys so that they can flow to the right direction, they can still cover really well without having to go sideline to sideline.
Next up, cornerback, only $15.4 million. That's only 28th in football. We're definitely better than that, with the obviously crushing it with two starting good corners with Jack Jones and Nate Hobbs on rookie deals. Even though like there is like a gaping hole ish as a starting outside corner. Just those two guys alone, we're getting so much value for pennies at corner.
And this goes back to something that we've talked about for a lot of years. You can't always look at drafts as well, like the Mayock, what he was trying to do. Well, out of this draft, yeah, we missed on the first 3 rounds, but we got a 4th, 5th, and 6th rounder that played great. Well, you're paying a ton of money for those 1st, 2nd, and 3rd rounders who aren't playing.
Yeah.
And we're getting production out of guys that are in rookie contracts still. Jack Jones is still on his only his 3rd season. Hobbs is what it is. This is also his 4th season, right?
3rd. It'll be I think it's 3rd.
3rd? Okay.
I think 3rd.
Yeah.
4th.
So these guys are like still really young on their rookie deals, and they're lock starters. So this is why it's important to not waste money on early draft picks, because you don't have to go out. And if let's say we didn't have Jack Jones, we would have had to spend more money than we're paying Jack Jones now to get somebody who probably isn't as good as Jack Jones, a veteran. So we're not as good, and we're spending more money. And the alternative with this, with a guy on a rookie deal producing at a high level, you're able to spread that money out to other places, which is, what we're doing now. We're getting the Christian Wilkins out there. We're, plugging big holes, right? So, it just makes things a lot easier when you have a lot of starters on rookie deals.
Safety, kind of on the fence. $15.9 million, which doesn't sound like a lot. It's only $500,000 more than corner, but that was corner is 28th. Safety is 14th, even though we're spending only $500,000 as much. It just goes to show you where
there's less safeties on the team.
There's less safeties, and also where the value of the position is.
Yeah.
14th at safety, which I feel like is on par. I think that's Jerome Merrick, Marcus Epps, not a ton of depth behind them, but I feel like average pay for maybe average and above average safeties.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're right where we need to be pay wise on this one. This is right in the wheelhouse. A couple up, a couple down. That's going to be exact, but I think that this room is not elite. I wouldn't say our safeties are elite safeties. I think they're good to pretty good, maybe teetering on very good, depending on some growth. Maybe this rookie from Air Force, what he turns out to be, or does Polamalu get continue to have his kind of do a Malcolm Kuntz, where Malcolm Kuntz still kept his production percentage as his snaps rose. Is Isaiah Polamalu going to be able to do the same as his snaps? Is his percentage of making plays is that going to go along with the higher snaps? We'll see, hopefully, but I think it's a good group, man. I think it's a kind of an underrated group. I think Merrick really kind of came into his own last year, and Epps, he has some liabilities. He's not the best tackler out there, and but he's good at what he does. And I think that this can be one of the groups that sneaks up on people. But I think 14th pay is right around where they need to be.
And then special teams, no brainer. Kicker, $4.6 million. That's only 10th. Punter, $3.5 million, only 6th, with arguably top two kickers in both spots. And then long snapper, $1.13 million, 26th. No brainer. Special teams. Tons of value.
Oh, yeah.
Our legs. Tons of value. Although I am curious what they're going to do with kickoffs with Daniel Carlson. We had this kind of discussion. Do you have Daniel Carlson do kickoffs?
Probably not.
Because you need him to be a tackler, and he's just such an asset in field goals. It's like, do you even risk it? Like, you're not trying to kick it far.
You don't have to kick it that far. You don't have to kick it that high. And with how close the blockers and the blockees are going to be to each other, it takes one seam and it's it's over, gone. So you need to have guys that are sound, that know how to stay in lanes, who are good tacklers. So the more tacklers you can put on the field, the better. And I don't know that Carlson is Mike Singletary out there.
If it was we had Sebastian Janikowski, it'd be perfect. So
he would just run through guys.
300-pound ass down there. Just go.
He was so big.
One last thing on the topic. We are in a nice position timing-wise, because there are going to be some big contracts coming up in 2 years. There's some starters that are going to need some,
after this year.
After this year, but really after 2 years too. After this year for sure, and it gets real steep after that.
Parham, Jones, Hobbs, Merrick, Munford. Yeah, that's a lot.
There'll be a lot of guys that
a lot of guys coming up.
Which it works out nicely if we draft a rookie quarterback in the next draft or two. So we can have that beautiful honeymoon period of 5 years of paying squat, pay all these dudes their second contracts, not have to pay a quarterback, and then have it shift after that, right? So it's asking a lot. right? Like to get that type of quarterback in the next draft or two. It's always hard getting your quarterback ever. But the timing works out. The timing works out. Where we can pay the rest of the team big money if the quarterback's on a rookie deal in the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get that quarterback. You have to want to get him. You have to go out and get the guy. Very rarely are you going to get like the Bengals need a quarterback, and now guess who's available? The first pick. Like, oh wow, check this out. So I don't see us being that bad where we're gonna get the first pick in the draft. So we're gonna have to go find them. I mean, you really don't get them unless you go for them.
So our buddy Rory sent me this on Twitter. I thought it was a good discussion.
Freaking limey bastard.
The limey bastard came up with something citrusy. Tristan Kuhn on Twitter brought up a question. I thought it was interesting. If the NFL allows you to send players to the UFL as a minor league sort of system, which players for the Raiders would you choose? I think this is interesting because you're playing a balance of a couple things. If one, we have to sort out exactly the rules. Can we pull them up? Like, let's say it's like a minor league, let's say it's like a triple league minor league team, right? Can we pull them up whenever we want, right? Like, is that part of the equation? And 2, you got to balance, are they going to get more experience, coaching, etc., by more playing time in the minors, or will they advance better with less playing time, but better coaches in the actual major league room, etc.? So I think that also goes into the equation of which players too, right? There are certain players you're like, okay, this guy needs coaching, not reps. Those other guys are like, all right, this guy needs reps, not coaching. Soto?
Yeah, I mean, there's
any guys that jump to mind?
Yeah, I mean, young quarterbacks, I think. Just seeing the speed and getting used to a more pro style. A lot of this, you see a lot of we saw it in the whole first round. Only one of the quarterbacks really was under center. That's JJ McCarthy. The rest of the guys are all shotgun. Yeah, almost 100% of the time. So those are things that you need to to clean up and get better at. Maybe not first round picks, but some guys later in the draft who want to develop, right? And I think, and then mostly I think a lot of defensive guys, young defensive linemen, young DBs, stuff like that, and that they're more technique based as far as like cleaning stuff like that up, or learning how to use your hands better with pass rushes. You can't just get by on your athleticism, stuff like that.
I think Byron Young, I think it's just like a name. I think he's a guy that needs to stay busy and needs to be moving.
Byron Young, Jacorian Bennett. I mean, Chris Smith.
Jacorian Bennett's going to get some playing time, though. That's the thing, is like you won't be getting, like, you're assuming no playing time, non-rotational, and no special teams, right? So that's where it's kind of like, I feel like it'll be very few drafted guys. I feel it'll be almost all
Amari Burney, a linebacker, young guy.
Like undrafted free agents.
That's a good one.
And quarterbacks.
Burney was a safety. Mm-hmm. He played 1 year of linebacker. He got drafted as a linebacker. He hadn't played the position.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's get him down there and get him used to playing the position a little bit more against good competition, better competition than he played against in college, probably. But yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Him or Chris Smith. Chris Smith again, a guy that's going to be relying more on his technique and his knowledge than his overall athleticism. Get him some more looks. Get him some playing time.
This would be great for all those like way overdrafted players from the Gruden era. They'd be like, oh god, okay, this was a bad move. Let's get him some playing time.
Never would. Your boy Abram, freaking Cleveland Farrell, if they had it at the time.
Can you imagine if they sent Alex Leatherwood to AAA ball?
He needs to be.
He should have been. But I just imagine, do you think they'd have the sack to do that?
They cut him. I mean, why not?
Well, I also wonder if, to my first point, would he have benefited more from being on the 53 and the coaching that comes with and going against Maxx, right? Or would he benefit from actual playing time? I kind of lean playing time. for
He got
Allen.
all the, he got all the
needed
play,
both.
he got all the playing time in the world. This
Yeah.
rookie season, he was still god awful.
Just full liability mode
God
every
damn.
time out.
He was just not good. When I saw that the Chargers freaking signed him, I was like, oh God, really? God damn, man. Every time I hear that name, God, it just pisses me off.
And it's such a good name.
No, it's not even about that. It's just
a great name.
It just my feeling came back. I just felt so hollow, so empty. Like, no, dude. Like, he's right. Darisaul's right there.
You just wanted a man to come fill that hole in your body.
No.
You know, you just wanted Darisaul to come in there and just
no, you're just
fill that
silly.
hole. No, I get what you're saying, Soto. I definitely get what you're saying.
Darisaul to fill that hole that never would, never could. God, I just so bummed out, man. Just so bummed out. I was so sad after that. I don't really remember. We did the freaking like a little post draft thing. I was so sad, dude. I was so sad.
It's never gonna go away. Well, bad news for the bank account of Antonio Pierce.
Jesus.
I'm reading the Athletic story. I forgot the guy that actually broke the news. Apologize, doing terrible show hosting here for not giving credit where credit is due. Raiders coach Antonio Pierce subject to judgments of over $28 million as wife files for bankruptcy. So the long story short here is Antonio Pierce was approached by some friends about investing in some car dealerships. And it sounds like he got kind of duped. There's a from the actual like bankruptcy filings. This is a quote. In the 2010s, Mr. Pierce was convinced to invest in car dealerships. Despite his role as a mere passive investor with no oversight or management of the business affairs, Mr. Pierce was asked to sign various documents. Although the debtor has no direct knowledge of the events, personal guarantees were later produced bearing Mr. Pierce's name. When several of the businesses defaulted on their loans, the lenders obtained judgments against the businesses and Mr. Pierce as a guarantor. The debtor is informed that these judgments amount to more than $28 million. So it's not like he went out and just like spent $28 million on credit cards and now owes it to Macy's. It's someone convinced him to invest. It sounds like he thought, oh, here's just some money. I'm going to get some back. I'm a football coach. I'm not going to be at the dealership every day being a bean counter. But they got Pierce to sign as a guarantor where his name was on the loans. These guys racked up all these debts, and then Antonio Pierce was on the hook for it. So Pierce got duped, if these records are accurate.
Yeah, man. It's I think it was Tashawn Reed from The Athletic.
He wrote this article. He wasn't the first to break it.
Okay.
I need to find who was the first guy to.
But it's
Jason Morin. Jason Morin.
Jason Morin.
Credit Jason Morin.
So it happens, man. It happened to me. It happened to me where I was, on the hook for a bunch of stuff. And this is pretty simple. I mean, Florio tried to create a bunch of, controversy as, oh, how's it going to affect them on the field? But anyone who knows the process, this is a pretty simple thing. It doesn't matter whether it was his wife or Antonio Pierce himself who did it. When you're married, it's the same thing. You need both people's debts, both people's income, both people's tax returns, all that stuff. So you need everything when you're married to file bankruptcy. So whether it's in her name or his name, it doesn't matter.
I don't think. I mean, I love to shit on Florio as much as the next guy, but I think there is a little bit to think of. Like, he's got a $28 million judgment hanging over his head. Sure, it can affect him. Although maybe if it means that like all those incentives that are potentially in his contract, he's like, all right, got to win a Super Bowl or I'm homeless. Like maybe it's going to drive him a little bit because he's got, and you know how these things go, right? They'll settle out of court for another number, or the people who ran the debts will get caught, or, these like lawsuits and bankruptcy filings, they use the big number the same way that like ESPN uses like contract numbers. 4-year, $160 million deal. And you find out later it was like $45 million guaranteed. right? Like that's the same thing here. $28 million. It's like, okay, well, they're going to settle for like 6 at some point.
Yeah, or it can just get written off altogether.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's when AP would go after the guys who were the perpetrators of all this. But it's unfortunate, but I don't think it's going to be that big a deal as far as affecting the team at all.
Or AP just goes to Crosby's late for practice by 1 minute. He's like, Max, that's a $28 million fine. I can't believe it.
I'm finding you $28 million.
This is just completely unacceptable. You're stepping in this field at 9:01 a.m. That's a $28 million fine.
How dare you?
Just write the check to cash.
I'm going to make an example out of you.
I'll bring it up to the front office. You lazy bastard.
$28,000, and he just adds a couple zeros. No, man. That's check. Max, Max Crosby, give me the check.
Yeah, it's good for it. Ready to do some What Up Windbags?
I am.
Good. We're going to do it.
Let's do it.
Keith Pardini, 9065. Thank you so much for being a member of the Autumn Windbags. Honorary Windbag. I'm tired of this shit that we can't win because we didn't get a franchise quarterback and should have had a talent fire sale. The Ravens won a Super Bowl with freaking Trent Dilfer, who completed a measly 12 of 25 passes for 153 yards and 1 touchdown. They won with a solid defense, and we have a solid defense. Well, the beautiful thing about rules is there are exceptions to the rules. And that would be the, 2000 Ravens? That was Dilfer, right? 2000?
Yeah. Where do I start?
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It has happened 24 years ago. It happened. It can happen. But what's the best path to victory here, Soto?
That wasn't a solid defense. That was a all-time great defense.
Mm-hmm.
They had, let's see, Tinata, who else? Ray Lewis,
Reed,
Terrell Suggs, Siragusa, Reed. Dude, they had and then on the opposite side, you have your boy out of UCLA. What was his name? The tackle?
Offensive tackle?
A huge offensive tackle. I keep wanting to say Orlando Pace, but it's not Orlando Pace. He went to the Rams. It's the other guy. I'm blanking right now. It's terrible. I hate it. They'll never get hit in the head, people. But they had an all-world tackle. They had, Jamal Lewis, great running back, one of the best running backs in the league, 2,000-yard rusher. They didn't have a franchise quarterback, but everything else they had was through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And although I think we can be very good, and even my fandom is not, even my fandom doesn't allow me to say this is going to be an all-time great defense.
Mm-hmm. That's
what the Ravens had. They didn't just have a solid defense. Let's just start there. It wasn't just a solid defense. It was an all-time great defense. That defense was better than any defense we've ever seen. So there's that. The running game that they had was also one of the best in the league. Okay. You can have a quarterback that doesn't make mistakes.
Hall of Fame caliber coach. He had everything.
Hall of Fame coach. Kicker was great. I mean, look, I'm not. Can we win without it? Sure, but can you kick a basketball? From the free throw line and have it go in? Sure, you can do that. It's not the most effective way or efficient way to do it. It's not the way that people do it more often, right? But I think that, like I was talking about earlier, it's a lot of unknowns. We don't know. We can say, oh, yeah, we can win with Aidan O'Connell, but, I mean, he was 26 or 27 in QBR or something like that? He played okay for a rookie. I mean, but those numbers have to get higher if we want to do anything.
I will say, to add a spark of optimism, I do think Aidan O'Connell, the ceiling is higher than Trent Dilfer's. I think we will get a better play out of Aidan O'Connell than Trent Dilfer gave.
Also, Trent Dilfer wasn't a second-year player. He was a seasoned, grizzled veteran who knew how to take care of the ball, didn't have an ego. It's you know what? I know where my bread is buttered. If it's not there, I'm going to throw it away. And they what was it? Stokely, I think, was that big that first play where he just they bombed it down there, and he made a big splash play, one of the first passes of the game. Yeah, you can win that way. It's just it's a lot harder to do it.
Skilderon 64. ESPN ruins sports. Full stop. So this is the thing with ESPN. ESPN, like Dan Patrick calls it the mothership for a reason. It is enormous. It is gargantuan. Like there's nothing like it in sports. It's just so fucking big. It's mainstream. And like anything, when you are McDonald's or Walmart or AT&T, you need to appeal to the lowest common denominator and to the masses. I've always said this about ESPN. Like, it's sports for people who aren't sports fans. It's meant to draw in your mom, your 9-year-old son, your neighbor that watches 2 games a year. It's made to be entertainment and informative for them, not for you and me. And that's not a bad thing per se. That's who the market is. Like, this show is for diehard Raider fans. We speak in terms of Raider fans. We're talking to Raider fans. If we were this giant show and we had 1 million people audience and fans of all 32 teams, we'd have to do a different show to appeal to those people. But that's not our show. And that's with ESPN. It's opposite of us. It's let's put this giant canopy of very sterile, very simple, very easy to understand sports coverage because it needs to appeal to every single person.
There's a reason why it's called Entertainment and Sports Programming Network and not Sports and Entertainment Programming Network. Mm-hmm. It's the entertainment comes first. On top of that, hi kids, like Mickey owns it now. So things that come out of anyone who's on ESPN programming's mouth has to be run through Mr. Mouse Ears, because Mr. Mouse Ears also reaches a lot further into entertainment and movies and TV shows and streaming. It's the reach is incredible. So if you're seeing a lot of stuff that is more indicative of fads and the way things are going climate-wise, as far as just how people think and how people think who are maybe a little bit younger in the demographic that maybe ESPN wants to get a little bit more of, that's why. And a lot of the older, more grumpy old farts like us and older who are used to things being a different way and maybe have a couple of different beliefs, maybe don't agree with a lot of what's being pushed, how they feel things are being pushed on them by the network. I get that. But ultimately, like you said, RJ, it's about entertainment. And you have to appeal to the masses. And if you're not part of the masses, you're going to hear some things that maybe you don't want to hear.
I think of decades ago when there were only 3 TV networks, right? There's only 3 networks. You had 3 choices when you turn on the TV every night. Those shows had massive budgets, giant superstars, incredible reach. And some of them were great, but they're all kind of the same thing. None of them were really edgy. None of them offended anybody. None of them were kind of that wild or off the wall because you couldn't afford to be. You had to appeal to everybody. Now, TV is incredible because we have 1 billion choices. There's 1,000 Netflix shows you can go through. HBO and Hulu and Amazon and Apple. Like, you can have the show Big Mouth on Netflix. That super raunchy cartoon show, that of course could never exist on TV. But because they don't need to appeal to everybody, they only have to really appeal to a small audience who love them. It's there. And we have 1 million options. And that's how it is today. Me and Soto can talk like regular 40-year-old adult Raider fans without the fear of pissing off a 62-year-old housewife that doesn't watch football because she's not watching our show.
Yeah, she doesn't watch us anywhere.
We can just have normal human interaction the way 2 dudes would. And that's a good thing, right? And again, it doesn't make ESPN bad. It's just not for you and me. It's for everybody else and no one kind of at the same time. It's weird.
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act, and that's why they're so good at what they do, because they walk that line.
Last one, Ken Kress, 3665. What's the fucking obsession with alcohol? I mean, if you got a better way to get drunk, I'm all ears. That's my obsession.
I mean, look, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask about this because I don't really drink. And it was an adjustment because before I would drink quite a bit. And now I'm more of like this guy. Where I'm like, I see people like, hey, we're at the zoo fucking drinking. Hey, I'm here. I'm at the park, like with the concert at the park, getting drunk. Yeah, I'm at the beach getting drunk. So it's like, do you really do stuff or do you just get drunk at different places?
A little from column A, a little from column B.
More of column B, but you know what? To each their own. I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to look down on anybody for drinking because I still every now and then have a drink. But I mean, I understand what he's saying, but yeah, I get it. I mean, the obsession is it's RJ. That's the obsession.
The obsession is
RJ was
your bad feelings into good feelings. That's drinking.
And not always, man. I mean, you haven't seen some of the mariachi guys I've seen making people cry.
We're just not drinking enough. That's what I say. All right, that's it for us. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great 4th of July. We'll do our show a day early next week because 4th of July is a Thursday. So we'll record Tuesday. So you guys not a lot of people will actually watch on a Thursday because 4th of July. You should be out.
Listen, guys, look, we understand that you're probably going to have a wife that doesn't quite look like she did when you first met her. Look,
okay.
Look, nagging at you, bitching at you to do this, to do that. The neighbors are coming over. You got to wash up the backyard, and you got to clean the grill off, and you got to do this. You got to do. I understand Thursdays can be a nightmare. We're gonna give it to you a day early, so you can sit back, relax, not work while you're listening to us like you normally do.
Crack open a beer because you're a session with alcohol.
Look, it's a lot easier to not do anything at work and listen to us than to not do anything at home with your wife than listening to us. So yeah, you have to, we're trying to help you guys out.
Giving you both options. And until then, knock on wood if you're with me.